the Taino is it's a government program, man. I mean, like there was no Taino lived in academia, and it was first coined as a language. There was a reference to Taino in a book that said that it's 1530, but it was actually 1600. So it was written, and it was attributed to a guy that lived before the book from 1530 was around. I mean, so there's been a convoluted, and these are all books written by people who were never in the Antilles either. They were written to describe the Spanish in a negative light. So a lot of the stuff that's in those books don't even match actual historic events. So you can't really take a gossip book and go, oh, well, all of these things happen when you've got documentation that directly refute it. But Taino came in 1836 and lived in academia, and then the Smithsonian picked it up in 1904, and then decided to label all the artifacts Taino. And then in the mid 1900s, 1950s, 60s, Taino started to be a replacement or part of a pacification program in the island of Puerto Rico by the government, but in relation with the American government and the Puerto Rican government, with a program called Operation Serenity that was led by DIVEDCO, the Division of Education de la Comunidad, which is the basically just community development. And you all know about community development in Canada.
You call it non-profits, just the whole the NGOs. They take all the capacity funding from real Indians.
Yeah, well, this community development program in Puerto Rico was created to psychologically manipulate Puerto Ricans to Americanize them so they wouldn't be proud of their Indigenous and Spanish roots. And so the people who carried on Indigenous lifeways in Puerto Rico are Jibaro, or
Jibaro?
Jibaro, right? J-I-B-A-R.
I have a hard time rolling my R's.
And Jibaro and Indios. And Jibaro, the identity of Jibaro, or the legacy of Jibaro, was shamed through movies that DIVEDCO, what led the community development program, made by using people in the island. So people will go see these movies to see if they could see their cousins or whatever in it. I mean, Puerto Rico is 110 miles long and 35 miles wide. If there's a movie going to be on there and you see that there's locals, you're going to go to the movie to see if you could see a cousin or, your auntie, whatever,
Like Toronto for our people.
Yeah. And so then in 1967 is when the word Taino went public, island-wide. And then by the 70s, along with AIRFA and all of that stuff with the hippie movement, Taino started to become an identity, a native identity, and it was Native American identity. And the founders of Tainoism were like shamans and, infiltrating Native communities as a Native American Taino. And so then there, a prophecy was written. People started to like dress up in certain ways, and then it snowballed again, and now it's in the political systems. We've got Tainos who weaponize proclamations. If you go to your municipality and you say, hey, I want a proclamation that says May 17th is Scotty Day. And
for the Canadian audience, what is a proclamation in America?
Yeah, that's what I'm sharing. I'm sharing that, like, if you wanted to go to your municipality and say, "Hey, I want May 17th to be Scotty Day because
Oh,
of the contributions that I've made in my community," and then they go, "Oh, okay, yeah, we see your contributions. It's cool," and then they just declare May 17th Scotty Day, right? So now Tainoists are going, "Oh, we're state recognized."
Scotty Day. Today will be
Right.
Scotty Day.
Right. Well, I mean, like that would be, can you imagine if you were like, okay, so I get this proclamation and now you go around telling everybody that the state recognizes you as
And
Scotty, as the
and I
Scotty
wanna,
tribe.
and then because like I'm a Canadian Indian, recognized under the Indian Act, 1985. It's like for me, a proclamation is something royal. I'm like only the king can make a proclamation in a. I'm talking through a British Commonwealth state of mind. So that's why I'm like, it's interesting how they weaponize stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's reserved for head of states.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how the grift is so deep that it's easy to do that, you know. I mean, it's decades of information, um, just like massive amounts of information written by Tainoists about Tainoism to reinforce the Taino concept. It's about 3 decades of that. And so, you know, anybody that looks up Taino at a surface level will see things that reinforce the Taino concept. But if you go a little bit deeper, you'll begin to see that there's stuff that actually refutes it. And so that's why I created the website, TainoLeadershipSummit.com, and put an archive on there because one of the things that Tainos love to do is suppress information. And so I wanted to have a place where all of the information that refutes Tainoism is in one place that people can go to and refer to. Scholars can go to it, academics can go to it, seekers can go to it, people who are legitimate native, you know, people like yourself can go to it, and you know, your leadership can go to it and see that Taino is not what it actually what it presents itself to be. And that's vitally important. It's also one of the biggest threats to Tainoism is truth. And so when you put truth out there, they freak out.
I
So
noticed like Pretendians' biggest fear is when you show truth to their face, and then they're just like right away they're just like deer in headlights.
yeah, that's, you know, it's like it's definitely one of those things that they don't know how to handle is the truth, because then the grift is up, and you know they can't manipulate people anymore if people are know the manipulation. So yeah, it's a whole thing. I was a Taino for a while, and then I woke up when I realized I could be Taino one day and not be Taino next week.
That's another point too. I like that. I like the fact that you admit that you were under the brainwashing of Tainoism, and then, like you said, you realize one day you could be Taino, and next day you wake up you're not. And
Hmm.
to me, that's so interesting. And I talk to people who are former Pretendians who have been in organized Pretendianism spaces, and it's interesting to see the the level of perception you guys have towards the people, because you guys know how they talk, you guys know how they think, you guys literally did all like the underwork while the figureheads took the lead. What I'm
Hmm.
noticing, and I hope more people will wake up against the harms of Pretendianism. Like there's no shame in being a settler. Like I'm proud of being a settler descendant from 1700s. It makes me so proud. Like, and I'm proud of my Scottish ancestors as well. I'm proud of my English ancestors. I'm proud of my Micmac ancestors, and I'm even 1/8 Malisit, and I'm proud of that. But I'm not Malisit. I'm not Basque. I'm not English. I'm not Scottish. I'm just Micmac because nobody wants to claim me. And legally, I'm not even a Canadian citizen under Indian Act 1985. Like, to be enfranchised into Canadian society is to like be a Canadian citizen, and I'm not enfranchised. I'm still technically a Micmac unceded Indian that's defined under Canadian and international law. Like, it's weird in Canada we have a whole like it's literal apartheid when I explain it. And so, like, when I look, I don't know, I envy American Indians. I'll say that out loud because they get to decide who gets citizenship. But I know there's some requirements like BQ and stuff. But it's just there's an envy there because Ottawa, the federal government dictates who is Indian in Canada. But yeah, that's the lens that we have in Canada. So it's hard for us to really, and none of us were allowed to get really an education until 1985, until the big amendment. Like, if you were getting an education, you would be ipso facto enfranchised into Canadian society, meaning you were no longer an Indian. You couldn't even become a doctor. You couldn't even marry, like, Native women, like Indian status pre 1985. If they married a non-Indigenous person, they were enfranchised into Canadian society, meaning they were no longer a status Indian. But that was amended in 1985. There's still a lot of, yeah, it's just, I don't know why Canada gets involved in who is Indigenous when we're in this mess because of them. And so it's hard to see other people claim to be something when in Canada it's literally legislated. Like, my whole existence is political.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's our apartheid up in Canada. It's hard to talk about because, like, Canadian, like in America, they just want to shut us up. They're like, oh no, you guys get everything, but in reality now all the Pretendians are getting everything. We don't get nothing. Like, yeah, there's a lot of money being channeled into Mi'kmaq, but it's all going to Newfoundland, and they're not Section 35 right holders, which means they're not, I guess, federally recognized equivalent in the States, but they're still accessing, I guess, quote unquote, federally recognized rights. Like, I guess it's like Vermont Abenaki access in, like, American Indian funds. It's like that, yeah. But so yeah, I have a deep understanding of citizenship, and I understand nationhood because of this, because of my struggle as a Micmac Indian and of not being able to decide. None of us get to decide, really. Canada does. And that's why I am a Pretendian hunter, because I want to take Canada down for what they did to us. And with that being said, I want to know more about your experience as a Taino when you were under the, I guess, government-sanctioned brainwashing. Is the best way to put it.
Well, the government program that created Tainos, the foundation of the claim of a Taino identity, the framework of Tainoism was built by a few people in the late 70s and the early 80s. And so those are kind of like the gurus, the CULT leaders.
That's like Calvin White for the Hollywood Pretendians in Newfoundland. I'm like linking the two. And, oh God, it's interesting.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of parallels with Tainoism and well-known Pretendian organizations. I like to say that Taino is a conglomerate of nonprofits who identify their members as Taino. And I think that pretty much sums it up, because people become Taino. They're not born into being Taino. Like, one of the things that really is disturbing about Tainoism is how people retroactively impose a Taino identity on their ancestors. So you got people who don't even know what a Taino is. Now all of a sudden they go, oh, look at my Taino grandmother, great grandmother, and then they have pictures of them from like the 60s or the 50s. And it's like, why are you trying to colonize your family? Like, why are you trying to impose this identity they never even knew, they never even heard of, onto your family? Like, there's something very
It
disturbing
is.
about that.
It dishonors their legacy because, like,
Mm,
how are we going to honor our ancestors if we don't label them the right identity and nationality they had while they were walking on this earth?
right. Like, dishonest is a really good word for it, and especially because they'll take that picture and they'll say, "Oh, look, here's my great grandmother. Doesn't she look Taino?" And then go, that's proof because look at her cheekbones, look at her hair,
Oh my
look at
God!
the. I'm serious. Like,
Like,
it's
let's look at the
awesome.
family trees, guys. Let's stick to the church
Mhm,
records.
mhm.
Because I'm a
Exactly.
Catholic, I understand that part. We're
Exactly.
documented by the church.
And people go, there's this thing called paper genocide that Tainos have picked up, right? And from Native American, from Indian country. Oh, Tainos had paper genocide. And it's like, no, hold on a second. The Spanish kept impeccable records. There was records in the island and records that had to be sent to Spain. There were dual records for 400 years because Spain needed to know what was happening in its island, Puerto Rico. And so the
And the church
idea,
too needed to know who was related because nobody was allowed to marry pre third cousins unless the church allowed them.
everything, all of that, right? Like, all of that. And so, like, the idea that there was a paper genocide is so ridiculous to me because it's like, the there's records of people all the way to, first contact. And so that to me is bizarre. But the paper genocide, the real paper genocide, is Tainos imposing retroactively an identity that never existed in our island in the first place, historically, that can go beyond 1967. There's nothing that says that Taino is the legitimate Indigenous identity beyond 1967 in the island of Puerto Rico. In that excerpt that I was talking with you about, the line in there says Taino is the name of a man. It's not a community, not a people, not a place, not a nation, not a tribe. It's a dude's name. And so and so how are you going to go from a dude's name to a whole tribe in 500 years? Or it was actually 1600, so it wasn't that, 500 years. But anyways, I digress. That's, that the co-opting of native trauma that Tainoism is so well adept at doing, things like paper genocide, Indian boarding schools, residential schools. Tainos go, oh, well, we had Tainos go to India. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't have time. No, America went over to Puerto Rico, picked up some Puerto Rican kids whose parents sent them there on scholarships, and they went as Puerto Ricans, not as Taino, as Puerto Ricans, and they can go back home whenever they wanted. If their parents had come back home, that didn't happen with Native people. That didn't happen for people who were scooped. That didn't happen. That kind of trauma did not happen in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, there's a lot of reprehensible uh, trauma theft that Tainos do to present themselves as this native identity where people feel sorry for them because they lost all their culture. Well, how are you going to be Taino if you lost all your culture? Well, they take from everybody to make their own. So it's not even traditional anyways. It's just
Very pan-indigenous.
pan-indigenous.
Another red flag for Pretendianism if they just it's focused on the pan-indigenous narrative rather than their own nation.
Oh yeah. It's, and putting people into nations to take as much from that nation and then repackage it as Taino. So like people
Just
will
like
go,
when I seen the punta and I was like, ooh,
uh-huh.
like Garifuna would slap me if I did that like without their permission, because that's like a maiden dance for them. It's very like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like from an anthropological lens, you have to respect it. You don't mock it. That's from
Yeah.
yeah my observations. I like to observe and I guess compare. Yes, compare and contrast. Is that how you say it in English?
Mm.
And another thing, Pretendians are so good at co-opted movements. They're so good at like it's you see it a lot like with in Newfoundland, for example. I love to talk about the Hollywoods. Like the Acadian French co-opted the French Indian no the Indian Newfoundland movement and because the Con River Micmacs were protesting so they could be recognized. They wanted a reserve. They were being ignored. So the Acadian white settlers were like, "Hey, I'm Métis too. I'm Micmac." It's so disgusting. And they co-opted the movement. They groomed Con River like to the point Michel Joe, their chief or old chief now, is so brainwashed that he's like he believes Métis are outside of the Red River. And I had to educate myself because Nova Scotia, where I live, is so bad with Eastern Woodland Pretendians. Oh, and I even got fired from my job in academia because I spoke out against a Eastern Woodland Métis Pretendian, even though he was only a security guard. That's how powerful these Pretendians are. They just talk to their boss, and the boss talks to the vice president, and then the vice president just plays games with you. This is why I understand academia. It's because I know how Pretendians weaponize even academia against people like me and even professors. I can't imagine like having to be civil with these kind of people who are literally lying to your face. It's like I digress. At least you're understanding where I'm coming from with my Pretendians. It's so bad in Eastern Canada because like everybody and their mom wants to be a Micmac, even though like when I was little, I'm 32 years old. Nobody wanted to be Micmac. Like we were the untouchables, and we're in the British Empire, so it makes more sense to call us untouchables. And then now all of a sudden, like everybody wants to touch us because it's profitable.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I have to get going in like 10 minutes because of our situation in here. But I've heard Micmac and Mi'kmaq.
They're the same. I use Micmac because people try to use Micmac as derogatory.
Yeah.
It's my way of saying it first before they can, and I get people saying you're saying it wrong, and I'm like, well, in the treaties we're referred to as Micmacs and Cape Sable Indian, so that's what I'm gonna go by right now because people want to be so politically correct. I'll show them that it doesn't get us anywhere.
Oh, okay. I understand now. Thank you for clearing that up because
yeah, but I'm a Mi'kmaq. Realistically, I'm Omno because I'm Wabanaki.
Okay.
Wabanaki is like there's 5 nations. We're part of a confederacy. There's us. There's the Wolastoq, the Maliseets, the Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, and Abenaki. That's why with the Vermont Abenaki is kind of personal for me because I feel bad for my Abenaki siblings because we share creation stories where people of the dawn. But I'm trying to see if I have any questions for you. I know it's like your power can go anytime.
Well, it's out already. I
It's
mean, like
out.
yeah. So
Oh
I
my
just went
god.
on data. So that's why I'm like, I gotta wrap pretty quick so that I can save battery.
Oh yes.
But I really appreciate this time here with you, and let's do another one in different
Yeah,
circumstances.
we'll make sure that there's no winter storm.
No winter storm.
We'll make sure that we'll have power. And I think TikTok is acting weird too.
Well, it just got took over right now with the Americans just took it over, and so I think it's going to be a little weird for a second, you
Yeah, my
know.
my statistics all say District of Columbia, and in Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands are British. I'm like, who are these people? Why are they watching me? You know, I don't mind Greenland, New Zealand, Australia. I'm used to those kind of people watching me, but like seeing District of Columbia, I'm like, ooh, get away from me. Like,
Well, I
like,
mean, go ahead.
I'm a British Indian. I want to see London on my statistics, not District of Columbia. I want to see real sovereignty. I don't want to see make believe sovereignty. No offense, America.
Oh my God, you're hilarious. This is awesome. I really appreciate this
I appreciate
opportunity.
you. Thank you. It's like it's enlightening to know that there's people in each category of flavor of pretendians. There's somebody like me that's causing trouble everywhere. So it's good to see.
Yeah, I mean, the Taínos are vicious, man. Like they go after people, and it's just incredibly vicious, which is essentially a red flag, because I don't see like Lakota people going after people all vicious like that because they're completely secure in their truth. There's documentation to back up their tribal,
Me, they call me white.
history.
Pretendians call me white, and I just tell them that's a compliment. Like nobody ever called me white in my life until I came on TikTok. Like I told the pharmacist the other day. I was like, oh my god, people on the internet are saying I'm white. I'm like, and they're laughing. I'm like, you're far from white, Scotty. I'm like, I know. My cheekbones can cut. Like I can't even. I don't wear glasses because it'll just pop off. I try to stay stoic because so that's stressful. See, that's my Wabanaki check. The check.
Right?
It's- and even like I know the Cree, they have ears. They have special ears they can hear. All our nations we have these like signatures. These genetic signatures that signify we are part of that nation. And I don't know why it was so hard to be like I would be proud to be Spanish. Like, oh yeah, my grandmother was from Spain. I would be like, let's go get that Spanish passport. Hell yeah, to get EU access. That's like the dream.
Well, the Americans have done a really good job at diminishing our Spanish heritage to the extent where Tainoists are groomed in hating their Spanish heritage. And
No, it's
America,
beautiful. I've been to Tenerife a million times. I've been to Basque
yeah.
Country. I've been to like I've been to Seville. I've been like up and down that Spanish coast and like and I feel like I like because like I'm 1/5 Basque and I feel connected but I'm not Basque. It's like I feel it in my bones. I know I sound like a pretendian, but like I don't go and be like, oh, I'm a Basque. I'm going to run with the bulls and I'm like, no, thank you. Like I know I'm still an Indian. I know my place.
Yeah, you mentioned something that's really important. You're very secure in your identity, and people in the Caribbean diaspora are in this position of, being a lot of being born in America, but yet still culturally connected to our roots in the Caribbean, and are told that the Spanish were horrible people. Look at how Christopher Columbus is portrayed. If you look at the words that are used to portray Christopher Columbus, whose name is Cristobal Colon, if you look at those words, he was a murderer, he was, great, all.
Oh, you're cutting off. I think her phone died.
Okay, there you
Oh,
go.
wait, you're back. You're there. Okay, you're still here.
Okay, yeah, and if you look at all those different things and you look at how the Latino migrants are being portrayed, they're murderers or rapists, they're, all of the criminals, all of the different things, and that is to keep in the people in this country marginalized. And so, of course, the race shift is going to be out of Latinidad, right? Or embracing our culture that is a big part of Latinidad and becoming Native American. And people are doing it, and they, I mean, I was one. I thought that it was something that I could do because I'm Puerto Rican and I was a Taino, and it was my right to claim this long distant ancestry that I believed, and I was sold and told that it was mine and I deserved to claim at the expense of anybody who questioned. And so a lot of people will see that and go, yeah, you can claim it. It's your right of self-determination to claim this identity. When in reality, self-determination is political, it's tribal, it's not individual.
And
And
you have to qualify for like Montevideo in 1933, what defines statehood, and the four requirements: government, population, territory, and I forgot what the last one is. But there's and then sovereign indigenous nations in Canada, United States, all qualify for the four qualifications for statehood under international law. That's what makes us sovereign.
yeah, Taino nonprofits do not have that.
Because they don't have a government, they don't have a territory, and they don't have a population.
Exactly. I mean, like, look, there's no Taino flower. There's no Taino Bay. There's no Taino Beach. I mean, there is, but it was named in the 90s. There's no Taino Mountain. There's no Taino, you know, this is a Taino coconut. Like, there's nothing that exists like that. There's no Taino Cove that the Spanish wrote on any of their maps. There's nothing like that. There's nothing to indicate that Taino existed in the time that Tainos claimed that they exist. But we do have documentation that says exactly when Taino came about. And and for what, as a language in Haiti, to describe the Creole, the pidgin in Haiti in 1836. Taino was used to describe it. Even Arawak. The word Arawak was used to describe a language, a lingua franca of many different tribes in like Guyana and Suriname and stuff like that aren't even in the Greater Antilles. And so it's just this language that was for that specific region called Arawak, the Arawak language. And now that people are like, oh, I identify as Arawak. It's like, what, you identify as a language? You're a language. Okay, like, no, you're not a language. Like, you're like, either you're Puerto Rican or you're like pretending to be something else, and that's the root of it. Either you're, Dominican Republic or you're, pretending to be something else.
Like it makes you think who's going to be their next big figurehead too, because usually they launch one of their biggest figureheads in their pretending scam. I see it in Canada. Like they'll have somebody. I hope they don't try to race shift Bad Bunny.
I think Bad Bunny, I don't know. He kind of stays away from that kind of stuff. I think maybe he's a bit more aware of these things.
I hope they're educated in Hollywood. I don't know how those weirdos act, but Sorry, I don't care for celebrities.
No, you're good.
My
You're good.
celebrities are Indians and elders.
Right? There was a recent Finding Your Roots, and there's one of the cook one of the chefs in that show, Bear, um, was on there, and I believe maybe her mother may have thought that there was some indigenous, in there, but they found out that they're pretty much African, and so she said these words. My mom's whole world is pretty much going to be devastated, and I was like, wow, they were probably looking for an indigenous ancestor and found African, and it messed them up. So, I mean,
That's something to be proud of. I
exactly,
like there's for example
exactly.
in my nation, the Micmacs, there's family called the Johnsons. All the Johnsons are descendant of a African slave who the Micmacs freed.
Mm,
We didn't own
yeah.
slaves. We freed people because only people who lived with us wanted to survive.
Hmm.
And this man survived, and now we have there's genetic marker on this family because of it, and it's beautiful, and it shows that it's not all about blood quantum. It's about continued existence as a nation, as a people. Like that's what we're talking about. That's well, that's my definition of indigeneity is that being inherently indigenous.
Yeah, DNA is not proof of tribal existence. It's proof of artifacts, genetic artifacts that carry on through time.
Because can you imagine, like tomorrow, I say I am a Mountbatten Windsor, and I declare I'm second in line to the throne, and nobody can argue with me because that's who I identify as now. I am now Scott Mountbatten Windsor, and I'm going to be the king when Charles dies.
People
You
would
see
be
how
like,
crazy that
crazy.
sounds? That's what
Yeah.
Pretendians sound like to me. Like they're inserting themselves in the British royal family. Can you imagine? Because when people insert themselves into our nations, you're inserting yourself into our sovereign and unceded nation. Sovereign, royal, hello, power, hello. Like people don't understand like the of why Canada and America tiptoes around us Indians. And these pretendians don't understand that. Like, it's political. They don't realize it's political in that sense. That they're walking on eggshells because their whole fabric of their countries is a lie. Yes,
Thank
that's
you so much for sharing that.
yes. That's you can tell that Canada's stresses me out. I had literally, I'm not even joking. I looked at my story this morning on Instagram. The premier of New Brunswick, Susan Holt, was in my story. Looking at my Instagram story. I'm not even lying. I'll send it to you after we get
Okay,
off this live.
congratulations. It's big.
It's annoying. I want to see Indians creep me. I don't want to see Aglacio politicians nosing me. That makes me weirded out.
Well, that means that you're influencing policy and change within
I hope so
those.
because I don't want
Mhm.
them to exist anymore. That's what I want to influence. Like I'm legit about land back. I'm legit about title back. I am. But I only can speak for my nation. I'm not going to force anybody else to do what they want. If they want to stay with Canada, they can. I don't want. But I'm forcing my people out of this union legally.
Mm.
That's why I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, about international law and yeah, you have to be a smart Indian to deal with these type of people.
It's important.
Because
It's
like to me,
important.
it's infringement on Indigenous sovereignty because it goes to citizenship. And like I mentioned, like in the beginning of the live, like Canadian Indians don't have say at who's a part of our nations legally. It's Indian affairs, Indigenous affairs, Canada that says who's Indian and who's not.
Wow. So how frustrating must it be for you guys to see a Canadian Indian to see a nonprofit come up and be like, yo, I'm native. Like that must just absolutely be infuriating.
so hard for like it's not just my nation. It's like the Inuit or the Inuit. Sorry, I got to say them right. They're dealing with this too. They have like the Munatuguva Community Council, like same nonprofit grift. My nation has the Hollywood Pretendians, that turned into something weird, and